Hi, alright, so I made these videos like 3 years ago, and when I was making them I had rudimentary equipment and rudimentary editing skills, but I'm back. Like I promised, I was going to remake this video about the contiguous sleeve, so here we are. The first thing I wanted to explain was the difference between sleeve types. So I have a couple examples for you. This is a traditional raglan sleeve. So you can tell what a raglan sleeve looks like because the seam usually starts at the collarbone area somewhere and it goes diagonally across the top of the chest near the collarbone toward the armpit. This is a seamless sleeve, and it's usually made, by casting on your number of stitches for the neck, a small number of stitches at the top of the shoulder, around the back, and the same on the other side. And then you do increases down the front and the back of the shoulder in the same way, symmetrically, and that creates this nice little triangular piece that stops at the armpit, and you separate there. You keep these stitches live, and you either pick up and knit these stitches, usually with some short rows or something here to kind of come down around the edge of the shoulder, or there are kind of a couple other ways to handle raglan seams. Some people just start knitting around without any short rows, and it doesn't fit as well, but it works. So that's a raglan sleeve, very common. This is a top-down method usually. It can be done bottom up as well, but it's pretty common for top-down sweaters. Okay. The second type of sleeve I have is a set-in sleeve. This is a more traditional sleeve. You see these a lot in cardigans. I'm trying to think of where else you see these. I mean, there are different places, but basically, this is a sweater that my mother-in-law knitted for me that I used in my last video. Basically what you do is you knit the fronts and the backs of the cardigan pieces, and then you knit the sleeve, usually separately, but sometimes you can do it on the existing kind of open stitches, or you can pick up stitches around the edge. But what you see is that this sleeve is a lot more straight, so you're going to see this in more traditional sweater types, and you actually see it like in this t-shirt that I'm wearing. I know this is black, but there's a seam that comes straight down from the edge of the shoulder all the way down to the armpit, and that's a set-in sleeve when it's on a sweater. This gives a much straighter line. It gives kind of a cleaner look. It's not as modern and it's not as casual, so this is really nice for a slightly more formal sweater, or something that's got a lot of patterning on it, where you want the sleeves to kind of just not interfere with whatever is going on with either the chest area or the back area. Okay, the set-in sleeve. So now we get to the contiguous sleeve, which I did with this super dark sweater, and I'm going to try to show you this again. Hopefully the light's a little better here, and I'm going to try to do some close-ups of it as well. I'm going to put this one on. So this is my Versio that I knit a couple years ago. It's held up pretty well. And the difference between this and the other two types of sleeves is that it's kind of a combination of both. So essentially what you have is you start with your front stitches. In this case they were split for a neck opening, but the back is straight across as well. So you could do, if this were a crew neck or a straight neck, you would do your stitches across the neck again. And then you start with just a couple stitches, like 4 stitches at the top here. And then you go around and you do your back stitches, and then you come around here and you do the same across the other shoulder, 4 stitches. And as you knit, you start increasing. You start doing these little increases on either side of these 4 stitches. And as you increase, what it does is it creates the fronts and the backs of your shoulder. And at the same time, it creates like a triangular cap on your sleeve. So there's a little straight part, the seam comes down here, and then obviously under the arm. And then what it allows you to do is knit this straight down, because that amount of increasing actually stops you right at the edge of your armpit, so you can knit straight. It's wonderful because you don't have to do any short row shaping here. It's already knitted down kind of flat for you. It's very simple, and the really nice thing about it is it makes a very traditional shoulder seam. So if you don't like raglans, or you don't want the look of a raglan, the contiguous method is great for that, because it gives you that same kind of traditional seamed look without having to do any of the seams. It's a little bit more subtle than a seamed look. There's no sewing, which is wonderful, I think. And actually the sleeves on this sweater have held up remarkably well considering how old it is. And I was interested to see how this would wear, and I can tell you that now, which I couldn't tell you a couple years ago. But it works out very well. As you can see, it's straight right on the shoulder. And the only kind of problem I had with it personally was that the shoulder cap is not kind of a rounded, traditional looking shoulder cap. It's got like kind of a small, weird triangular thing. But once you put it on, the triangularity of it gets distorted a lot by the fact that your shoulder is pressing into it, and it actually makes it a pretty comfortable sleeve to use. So it was wonderful to try that on this Versio, and it's a nice little sleeve. I haven't used it in other patterns because I've just been following patterns lately. Between the last video and this time I've had a baby, so things have been a little bit busier around the house, and I haven't had time to do a lot of changes to the patterns. I've just been knitting them for a few hours every night. But I think it's a wonderful sleeve, and I think it's worth looking into if you're interested, and I hope I've answered some questions you might have about it. And if not, leave them in the comments and I'll get back to them. See you next time.